Vermont is a state in the New England region of the United States. It borders the states of Massachusetts to the south, New Hampshire to the east, and New York to the west, and the Canadian province of Quebec to the north. Vermont is the only state in New England that does not border the Atlantic Ocean. Vermont is the second least populated U.S. state and the sixth smallest by area of the 50 U.S. states, with a recorded population of 643,503 according to the 2020 U.S. Census. The state capital is Montpelier, the least populous state capital in the United States. The most populous city, Burlington, is the least populous city to be the most populous city in a state. For some 12,000 years, indigenous peoples inhabited this area. The historically competitive tribes of the Algonquin-speaking Abenaki and Iroquoian-speaking Mohawk were active in the area at the time of European encounter. During the 17th century, French colonists claimed the territory as part of the Kingdom of France's colony of New France. After the Kingdom of Great Britain began to settle colonies to the south along the Atlantic coast, the two nations competed in North America in addition to Europe. After being defeated in 1763 in the 7 Years' War, France ceded its territory east of the Mississippi River to Great Britain. Thereafter, the nearby British 13 colonies, especially the provinces of New Hampshire and New York, disputed the extent of the area called the New Hampshire Grants to the west of the Connecticut River, encompassing present-day Vermont. The provincial government of New York sold land grants to settlers in the region, which conflicted with earlier grants from the government of New Hampshire. The Green Mountain Boys militia protected the interests of the established New Hampshire land grant settlers against the newly arrived settlers with land titles granted by New York. Ultimately, a group of settlers with New Hampshire land grant titles established the Vermont Republic in 1777. As an independent state during the American Revolutionary War, the Vermont Republic abolished slavery before any of the other states. Vermont was admitted to the newly established United States as the 14th state in 1791. During the mid-19th century, Vermont was a strong source of abolitionist sentiment, although it was also tied to King Cotton through the development of textile mills in the region, which relied on southern cotton. It sent a significant contingent of soldiers to participate in the American Civil War. The geography of the state is marked by the Green Mountains, which run north-south up the middle of the state, separating Lake Champlain and other valley terrain on the west from the Connecticut River Valley that defines much of its eastern border. A majority of its terrain is forested with hardwoods and conifers, and a majority of its open land is devoted to agriculture. The state's climate is characterized by warm, humid summers and cold, snowy winters. Vermont's economic activity of $34 billion in 2018 ranked 52nd on the list of U.S. states and territories by GDP, but 34th in GDP per capita. In 2000, the state legislature was the first to recognize civil unions for same-sex couples. Samuel de Champlain claimed the area around what is now Lake Champlain, giving the name Vermont to the region he found on a 1647 map. Evidence suggests that this name came into use among English settlers before it morphed to Vermont. ca. 1760. In 1777, Thomas Young introduced the name in writing with a broadside to the inhabitants of Vermont, a free and independent state. Between 8,500 and 7,000 BCE, at the time of the Champlain Sea, Native Americans inhabited and hunted in present-day Vermont. During the Archaic period, from the 8th millennium BCE to 1000 BCE, Native Americans migrated year-round. During the Woodland period, from 1000 BCE to 1600 CE, they established villages and trade networks, and developed ceramic and bow and arrow technology. Their population in 1500 CE was estimated to be around 10,000 people. During colonial times, where encounters and settlement were initiated by French colonists, the territory was occupied mainly by an Abenaki tribe known as the Sokoki, or Missisquois. The eastern part of the state may have also been occupied by the Androscoggin and Pennacook peoples. To the west, The Missisquois competed with the Iroquois and Mohawk, based in the Mohawk Valley but with a large territory, and the Algonquin Mohican peoples. Many of the tribes later formed the Wabanaki Confederacy during King Philip's War. The warfare by English colonists defeated and scattered most of the surviving Abenaki tribes. The first European to see Vermont is thought to have been French explorer Jacques Cartier in 1535. On July 30, 1609, French explorer Samuel de Champlain claimed this territory as part of New France. In 1666, French settlers erected Fort Sainte-Anne on Isle La Motte, the first European settlement in Vermont. The Y lent 163